So just as we have seen the 5 a day initiative, and just as we've seen the traffic light nutritional value system on food be initiated, the sugar tax is the government's new way of trying to regulate our weight. Is it gonna work though? Good afternoon guys, welcome back to Maverick Baking. My name is Kelly and today we're talking about the sugar tax. If you live in the UK or anywhere nearby, you are probably aware that on Friday, the 6th of April 2018, the UK government fully introduced their sugar tax or their sugar levy, which is basically a tariff, meaning that consumers and manufacturers are having to pay more for their sugary fizzy drinks. Today I just want to talk about it briefly and kind of share my thoughts, and I also want to hear what your thoughts are on the subject. So if you have any thoughts right now or by the end of the video, please let me know in the comments below. I want to know how you feel about this tax. So there was a petition kind of a year or so ago, potentially 2 years ago, which was basically calling for people to sign the petition for government to consider kind of putting a tax on sugary drinks in the same way that they do tobacco and alcohol, in kind of an attempt to dissuade people from purchasing fizzy drinks. It's believed that they are a cause of obesity, that they're a cause of tooth decay in children, and the government responded by saying, you know what, let's do it. But the real kind of question is whether this is going to make any real difference. There have already been opinions flying all over Twitter on the subject, with people on one side saying it's great because everyone's too fat and unhappy and everyone's dying and we need to solve things immediately. And the other side saying, you know, sometimes I just want a can of Coke and I don't want to pay £3 for it. So what is this sugar tax exactly? It's been introduced, as I said, in kind of an attempt to tackle the widespread trend of obesity in the UK at the moment between adults and children, though mostly children, I think. I don't really know. In England, a child has to have a tooth removed every 10 minutes due to decay. That's like one child every 10 minutes, not the same child every 10 minutes. I don't think he'd have any teeth left by now. So this tax has been placed only on drinks that have more than 5% sugar content. If there is roughly a teaspoon of sugar per 100 mils of product, it's considered a sugary drink and it will be taxed. To put that into perspective, Coca-Cola roughly has between 10 and 13 grams of sugar per 100 mils. So it's around 10% sugar, so it will be taxed. The tax isn't being applied, however, to any pure fruit juices such as apple or orange juice. It's not being applied to smoothies, and it's also not being applied to milk-based drinks. So for example, a nice big venti vanilla toffee nut latte from Starbucks, that's not going to get any more expensive, even though it's loaded with sugar. I don't really get it either. At the moment, sugar is public health enemy number 1 in the UK, and I've seen kind of similar trends in the US and in Australia and things like that. 30 to 40 years ago, we were all terrified of fat and saturated fat. We thought that fat was killing us. We thought we were all gonna die as soon as we decided to eat a fried egg for breakfast. But nowadays, people are eating buttered toast with avocado and eggs with hollandaise on top, and it's fine. But if you wanna go and drink a milkshake, if you want to go enjoy a nice glass of Fanta, wow, get the police round because you are breaking the rules. So how exactly will this tax work? In real terms, we're talking about a difference of 18 pence per litre for drinks that are 5% sugar and 24 pence per litre for drinks that are 10% sugar. So things like Coca-Cola and Pepsi will increase by 24 pence per litre, whereas things with less sugar like Ribena, for example, will only increase by 18 pence per litre. The logic behind introducing the tax for manufacturers as well is that the government will be able to raise money both on the consumer side and on a manufacturer level, while also encouraging the manufacturers to make either reduced or sugar-free products anyway, so that they can avoid it. The UK government's treasury has estimated that this tax alone in a year will raise £240 million. £240 million, like, that's a lot of money. You would like to hope that the government would either put it into our kind of crippled NHS system, or they would put it into our underfunded schools, you know, to help teach the generations of the future about how to have a healthy relationship with food. But, you know, conservative governments aren't really known for their generosity towards the public. And we've got Brexit coming up, so I'd expect to kiss that £240 million goodbye before we even see it. Politics aside, who is reducing the sugar content of their drinks in response to this? Brands like Pepsi and Coca-Cola are being heavily affected by this tax, but these are companies that have more money than they know what to do with, so they haven't changed a single thing about their formula. They already have drinks such as Diet Coke, Coke Zero, Pepsi Max, Diet Pepsi, so they already have sugar-free options for the public. So they're not really going to be hugely affected by this, other than the fact that they'll be paying a little extra, but their customers will also be paying a little extra because no one's ever going to stop drinking Coke, let's put it that way. As a born and bred Scot, and as any Scottish viewers will know from watching this, Iron Brew in the past kind of 12 months recently changed their formula of their iconic Scottish drink. And I think the best-selling soft drink in Scotland. Now this was a big deal. Scottish Twitter exploded with people raging at the fact that they were gonna have to pay for a product that wasn't the Iron Brew they knew. Iron Brew decided to almost halve the sugar content of their regular Iron Brew. Bearing in mind they also produce Diet Iron Brew and Iron Brew Extra, both of which are already completely sugar-free. So they have reduced the sugar in their main regular product, replacing half of it with artificial sweeteners. People are not happy about this. A lot of people don't like diet drinks anyway because they just don't taste the same. And Iron Brew deciding to change the entire formula of their, you know, their regular well-known product that's been around for decades here in Scotland, it's a big deal. Other British brands such as Ribena and Lucozade have also opted to tweak their original recipe to be a little less sugary and a little higher in artificial sweeteners, because we all love those. So who will this tax really affect? This is the big important question for me. You know, we're fighting out all these options, and there have been people on the news saying that this is a fantastic initiative and that it should have happened years ago, and then people wouldn't have these weight problems and these health problems. But just hold your horses, right? Currently, the biggest consumers of sugar in the United Kingdom, unsurprisingly, are teenagers from around the ages of 13 to 17. But looking at the actual statistics here, it's thought that only 25% of a teenager's sugar intake comes from fizzy and sugary drinks. So while an optimist might think, fantastic, their sugar will be reduced by 25%. That's great, everyone's going to be glowing with health. A realist would look at this and say, you know what, either they'll get their sugar from somewhere else or they'll just pay the extra 24 pence. They're teenagers. They're gonna do what they want. When I was 15 years old, my breakfast used to consist of 2 toasted waffles covered in Nutella washed down with a glass of orange juice. Delicious, full of sugar, wouldn't have fallen under the sugar tax. While this initiative is targeted at the obese and at the unhealthy, as with everything in society, this tax is likely to disproportionately affect the poorest people in our society. It will also stop underprivileged kids or, you know, children who just don't have the same kind of money in their households being able to enjoy their favorite drinks. You know, a child could be completely regular, fit and healthy, but if their parents can't afford to buy them the drinks they like, is that fair? The tax will also affect people with chronic conditions in a way that you might not really expect. For example, diabetics, especially type 1 diabetics, can often need quick access to something that will raise their blood sugar fast if they are in a state of hypoglycemia. I have a best friend who's type 1 diabetic. I've seen this kind of thing firsthand. So now people with conditions such as diabetes are either going to have to pay more for a product or, you know, a sugar content they actually physically need, or they're gonna have to find a completely different way of getting it. And if every man and their dog is trying to create sugar-free products, this is gonna get hard. No one wants to stand eating an entire loaf of bread in their kitchen just to raise their blood sugar levels again. Another knock-on effect could affect people like myself who have digestive disorders. People who have IBS or who have Crohn's disease will know all too well that artificial sweeteners are very, very often a natural laxative. No matter how much you really, you know, consume of them, they make things move twice as fast as they should, let's put it that way. So basically, nowadays, you know, people who suffer from IBS, from Crohn's disease, from IBD, from lots of other kind of digestive disorders might be paying an extra 24p just so they don't have to shit themselves in public. Isn't that lovely? Okay, I know I'm now just kind of nitpicking to see who this will negatively affect, but that's why I'm here. This is why I'm doing this. But let's also look at whether this will actually tackle who this tax is being aimed to help. Will the sugar tax have any kind of impact on the levels of obesity in the UK? Now, there is nothing inherently wrong with obesity. People can be clinically obese, can be morbidly obese, and be perfectly healthy underneath. We know this. People perpetuate that weight equals health. It's not always the case, but that's not what we're here to talk about today. So a recent survey published on a BBC article relating to the sugar tax showed that out of 2,000 people that were just asked kind of on the street about what they thought, less than half of people asked said that this sugar tax was going to affect their buying habits. Basically meaning that A, people don't care, or B, they have enough money to pay it anyway, so they're going to continue buying their favourite fizzy drinks no matter what they cost. Conversely, they found that 3/4 of these same people asked said that if products and brands and the government could kind of shell out easier to understand nutritional information about certain products or just their diets in general, that would affect their dietary choices more. That I found interesting, but not surprising. It takes no scientist or statistician to look at the fact that the tax we've been placing on cigarettes and on alcohol probably isn't the thing that's going to stop people smoking and drinking. People are still dying from the effects of alcoholism. People are still binge drinking every weekend. And smoking is still the biggest cause of avoidable cancer in the UK. So tax doesn't solve everything. Taxes like the sugar tax can often be a great way for governments to make it look like they care and make it look like they're doing something, when in reality, it's just their way of earning money from our illness and our addiction. As with everything, education should always be the first port of call for things like obesity, things like poor diet, because making someone pay more for something is not going to discourage them from using it. They're just going to use something else instead. That's what always happens. You know, in schools, we're teaching children how to use complicated maths formula. We're teaching them how to analyse poetry that was written decades before they were born. We teach them about world wars. We teach them, you know, the valency of chemicals, and some of it's useful, but we're not teaching them how to cook. We're not teaching them where their food comes from. We're not teaching them what their food is. We're not teaching them how to prepare their food, or even how to have a healthy relationship with their food. And I feel like this really needs to be more important than simply slapping a tax on the closest sugary items we can find. 2 years on, someone might stumble across this video and be like, oh my god, look how stupid this bitch is. The sugar tax was the best thing that ever happened. And you know what? When that happens, you can come back and hit me with a big fat I told you so, and I won't mind. But until then, I'm going to remain pretty skeptical as to whether this sugar tax is actually going to have any effect, and if it does, whether that effect is any good for any of us. Let me know what you guys think about this sugar tax. Has it affected you? Has it changed the taste or the price of your favourite products? Do you even buy these products? Do you care? Did you even know? Let me know what you think. And especially if you're from another country, I'd love to see your kind of view on this. If you're from America, if you're from Europe, if you're from Australia, whatever, let me know how you feel about this and if you think it's something that your country should do as well. Thank you guys, as always, for joining me for my glorious ramblings. I've written a kind of more detailed post on this, and you can find that in the link in the description box below, which will take you to my blog, Maverick Baking. If you did enjoy the video, don't forget to like it, don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already, and before I see you next time, can I borrow 24p? I was going to buy a can of Coke. Thanks.